Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Our Boys Season 1. It's not Season 1, it's a mini-series. I do this every week. It is Episode 5. It is called Shabbat, Shalom. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. I have to admit, I did enjoy saying that title. Shabbat Shalom is a very fun phrase to say. I'm not a religious person. I have no interest in being religious in any way, but the one perk of being Jewish would be able to say things like Shabbat Shalom. At a regular. It's got the most fun words of any religious kind of text, I think, from my limited
I don't know if that's true.
experience.
Hebrew does sound kind of fun to say.
So this episode is very focused. It's all about the infiltration and trying to catch out Yosef and Avishai and anyone else in the vicinity who might point them to who the culprits are, with Simon undercover. And that is actually the vast majority of the episode. There's only a few times where we cut to Hussein or anyone else, and which is both for better and worse, I think. Because on the one hand, I think the episode's really nice because it's so tightly focused on this. But on the downside is that Hussein has largely been our favourite part of the show up until this point. So having so little of him,
Yeah.
I felt the hit.
Yeah, he was kind of missed after the first half an hour. I'm like, oh, I guess this episode is just going to be about Simon. And I agree. I went through that thought process of, well, I'm okay with that because I think I need to know more about him and more about his story that he's going through. But I do really like Hussein. Like, he's just been such a great actor. And he's going through all the emotion, the heart, and that's the things that you and I have both been connecting to in the series.
Absolutely. He's been great. There's a little bit of him, but we'll do his stuff first, I guess, because it is just a few scenes. Him and his wife, where she opens the evidence bag. Well, not evidence bag. That's not quite the right word. But the belongings, the possessions that came back with the body, and it's just his phone and he's it wasn't quite a bracelet, but it was a bracelet, I guess. But
It looks like one.
and she looks, and it's got the I love Toto on the phone, and she eventually sort of sneaks a look at at some of the messages on there and looks at this video. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is a horrible time to ask you a question. But did this confirm to us that Toto was actually a woman based on that video?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's a gist I got as well. I think we all assumed Toto was a guy, but maybe that was literally just because they just suggested right before we heard that name that he might be gay.
Right, but I think we did also discuss this in a previous episode about whether or not he was actually gay at the end of one of them. Because another one
Oh, we
just
did.
saw on a Facebook group that he supported like some kind of gay rights movement or something.
Oh yeah, we absolutely talked about that, but we were still unclear to what if he actually was or not. Like, sure, the fact that it's spread might be like just made up, but is he actually gay at the center of this?
Yeah.
Is that something? And honestly, this seems to suggest otherwise, just from this glimpse. This girl's trying to teach him dance moves or whatever, who lives in Istanbul, and so, and his wife, not Hussein's wife, not not Mohammed's wife.
Yeah, the mother of
Yes.
Muhammad.
Is watching this and is kind of just crying because she's sort of learning something about her son, something that was important to her son that she never knew before, and it's kind of a sweet moment. But she's hiding it from Hussein, who's asleep, because he was insistent that we should not open the bag. And I think this episode, and in a lot of ways, their small portions, is very much him kind of struggling to maybe starting to understand how his wife feels about this, even though obviously we've seen him go through a turmoil himself, but
Yeah.
he's not really stopped to try and consider how she's coping with this or how she's feeling this. He's angry that she's locked the door at one point, and then later on comes in with the phone and says, "Hey, the president wants to speak to you."
Right. Well, we didn't really see Hussein outside of the scenes with him and his wife in this episode. It's all this is mostly about his wife and the mother of Muhammad.
Yes, whose
Yeah.
name I checked before and then immediately forgot. So Suha's her name. Apologies for that. Immediately forgot her name as soon as we started talking. But it's all about her. It's about her coping with this. And she's definitely had much less to do than he has. She's always kind of been this minor plot point while he's had all the real dramatic stuff.
Sorry.
As Tara's bodily functions are just completely breaking down this episode. So, but it was a nice that was a nice scene, I thought, is where she's just like doesn't want to speak to the president, and then does it because, okay, I guess I have to. But as soon as she hangs up, she's like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm not happy that he's said something nice to me. I don't care what the president thinks about this. And he's very kind of like, oh, but he's going to like put a nice statement, and we're going to catch who did this. You know, he's not like super. He's not like I said that as if he's in a happy mood. But he's not. He's still clearly grieving his son. But he's been very kind of pragmatic, and he's been very kind of focused.
He's much angrier now.
Yeah. Where she's
now that the grieving part is, I guess, not over, but like the funeral happened, and now he's just about. He also has like vengeance on the mind. Like he wants whoever did this to Muhammad to be caught, of course, and that's the only thing he's concerned about.
It's almost as if vengeance and the need for it is merely just something to focus on to ignore your own pain.
Sure.
The idea that he was in a similar boat with Suha earlier on, in the sense that he didn't, he was clearly not interested in the rioting or the violence or anything like that. On that note, we'll move on to the main plot of the episode, which is very much Simon infiltrating this specific Jewish community on the Sabbath, and he's pretending to be a soldier who is stationed there because they're expecting trouble because of the murder. And he is he's staring at Yosef at one point, and Yosef starts talking to him, and you almost think that they've been very specific as to the disguise they've given him, the idea that, oh, he's a soldier, he might actually be more open to my more extreme views than someone else that's random or whatever. And of course, one of his relatives, or the rabbi, sort of jumps in and offers him a place to eat that night instead. And this was a funny scene, just because we keep cutting back to the rest of his team who are watching, like, because obviously he's wearing a bug.
They were so excited.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're getting into his house tonight, and then it's like this other guy's like, no, you're coming with me first. You're gonna go to him tomorrow, and like, shit. And then we have to listen to this household all night, which does not seem as promising. They try and, like, the younger cop, the good looking one, he tries to kind of like almost convince himself that they've heard something useful during this whole dinner scene, because the rabbi at one point, and then there's like a Russian guy who's like kind of an extended part of the family who is kind of saying things that are a little extreme, but as Simon,
it's just that the things that he's saying is from a very like matter of fact point of view.
Yeah, it's very reaction.
It's like somebody who has zero empathy trying to explain the situation.
Yeah, it's stupid camera. It's very reactionary. It's kind of like, as Simon puts it, because Simon doesn't stay overnight with him. Simon, like, the idea is that he's got like a post to go back to in the night. So when Simon comes back and he's talking to him, he's like, no, like, everything they said in there is a sort of thing that some of my family might even say. That they feel this way, they're reacting to the news, but that doesn't make them the killers. It doesn't make them the extremists.
Right. They're just trying to make connections to things that, whether or not they're there.
I do love his cover. His regular job is that he's an AC installer. He installs people's air conditioning. And a couple of them don't quite believe him, because one of the people in the surveillance room speaks Russian and is like, they don't believe him. They're calling bullshit in this air conditioning. And I thought they were going to start asking him all these questions, and they kind of try to at one point, but the conversation kind of veers.
Yeah, I mean, at one point the Russian guy is comparing the type of like detective agency that he's in, that Simon's in, versus like the KGB, and it's a little suspicious. Like, maybe he's bringing it up because he suspects that Simon is part of that.
Yeah. By the way, were you at all just like had this feeling of like the KGB? Yes, comrade. We're back to a little bit of Chernobyl.
That the warm embrace of the KGB.
The warm embrace of the KGB. Does the KGB still technically exist? Is that still what they call it in Russia?
I want to say yes.
I was just wondering. I've really thought about it. I feel like no one really talks about the KGB ever since the fall of the Soviet Union. But that may just be me and my not paying attention.
Well, does it? I mean, I thought it did. It's still like their main like secret service, or no?
I'm,
like spy headquarters is still the KGB.
KGB, yeah.
Isn't it in the Mission Impossible movies? Those are
Um,
post-Soviet Union.
no, I think it's still active because it gives me a list of what they had before the KGB, and there's nothing for after it. So I presume that means that they're still active.
Okay.
So there you go. For the record, there's been like several before. The one right before, because the KGB was founded apparently in '54. The one right before was the MGB. The one before that, which only lasted 3 years, was the NKGB. The one before that was the NKVD. The one before that was the OGPU. And then the first one was the GPU, which is really funny to me because that's a graphics processing unit these days. But they've been through a lot of acronyms. I do what I think it is. I think they found the acronym that's right for them, and they don't want to let it go. They're like, no, the KGB sounds good. It sounds good.
I mean, it is a pretty cool sounding acronym.
It is.
But I don't approve of what they do.
Well, of course, yes. No one suggested otherwise. Admittedly, though, you can't make a nice fun shirt out of it like you can the FBI with the boob inspector. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, classic and classy. Thank you very much. Anyway, so yeah, this scene goes on for a little while, and there's a bit back and forth, and it's kind of Simon just kind of trying to remain undercover and not finding out much. If anything, the greater purpose of this scene is that he actually starts getting a lot more honest because the other cops know that he's telling them true things about himself, even though he's using a fake name. He's actually using his brother's name, so he's not even using like a really distant name. He's but he starts, he mentions his mum. He talks about how his mum's living with him and how he doesn't want to put her in an old folks home, even though we know he's doing that. But of course, by the end of the episode, he calls his brother and says, "No, you know what? You can come back with me tomorrow. It's fine." It's almost like he, in talking with like a Jewish family, maybe something that he's not really done in this way in a long time. He kind of it reinvigorates his sense of right or familial bonds, perhaps. Maybe the praise that the rabbi gives him for looking after his mom.
Or maybe he just genuinely is looking for some advice.
Yeah, maybe.
And is too like far from what he used to be. Like he doesn't seem to take the religion personally anymore. It seems to be just a professional study for him now.
Yeah, because even when he calls
maybe he's just confused by this whole situation, like being so removed from it.
I mean, even when he calls his brother later on to tell to say about his mum, he does also say he's going to give his yarmulke back, which because it did feel like now because at that point in the episode he's kind of like succeeded, he's finished the job, the undercover job, and it's almost like, okay, now that that's done, the yarmulke is getting folded up and going in the pocket because he's done.
But also he does take his mom, like he agrees to. He says, "No, mom will stay with me. She's not going to an old folks' home."
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Which is what the other rabbi said would praise him for, saying that's what a good
that's what I mean by saying
would do.
This scene at the dinner table was more about Simon's character, really, even though it's framed around the idea of them all listening in and trying to like catch them out in a incriminating statement. Ultimately, the actual thing that comes out of it is really just Simon's own growth and what he's going through. Because he does get very personal, bizarrely. But of course, it's the next day when he actually goes to Yosef's house, and he also meets Avishai as well, a few times, because Avishai doesn't wait up to go with the family. He actually just goes straight to. And my computer's doing something. Hold on, go away. Thank you. He doesn't. He just goes straight to Yosef's house. He doesn't like go with them. To the synagogue or anything like that. He's very distant. He's clearly very troubled by something that he's going through, which we were talking about a lot about last episode. And we also talked a lot last episode about how he and even Yosef might be red herrings. And honestly, by the end of this episode, Yosef especially feels fairly implicated.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they could still swerve us with Avishai, but their logic for arresting Avishai at the end of the episode is pretty sound, based on everything they get throughout this.
Yeah, and I am also more convinced that it's not a red herring, that this is truly the people who are involved.
I suppose in a weird
It,
way, we were silly to think there was red herrings because it's actually, it's not a fictional story. It's a story that's, based on real things. So I guess it would be silly to have red herrings.
well, I mean, it's it's not if something happens to them and they were falsely convicted. You know? No?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a true story, so maybe
Yeah.
something happens to them and
True.
because they were
True.
falsely convicted.
Yeah. Okay. They could have been natural red herrings. I guess what you're saying, where they actually were mistakenly arrested and.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It could be. I suppose it could have been done that. Yeah. But there's no reason for them because if they're assuming the audience knows the general story of this, there's no reason for them to try and like trick us or make us think anything. So. But yeah, so he tries to talk to Avishai and says, if you need a friend to talk to, someone who is something of a stranger, someone that you can be honest with because you don't know them that well, I'm here for you, kind of thing. And then next day, Avishai just goes to Yosef's house and sleeps. He leaves everyone else. He's not comfortable sleeping there, and he takes an acceptance of silence. He calls it basically a vow of silence, where he's not speaking to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously bad for interrogation and surveillance purposes. But he's doing this, and when Simon goes home with Yosef and they're having dinner or whatever, Avishai does come down for the meal. But when Simon first goes up and Yosef's very proud of his house. He's talking about his recliners and how he's bought them from China. He's very
All
excited.
the way from China.
Very excited about the whole thing. But again, they're sitting down and they're at dinner. And it's a very different dinner scene from the one from the previous night, where there are some implicating things that are said, where there's glances, and Simon kind of intentionally provokes a reaction out of them by mentioning some of the footage that he's seen of the kidnappers and murderers. Now, obviously, at this point, it's not actually online because we see the other guys post it. So it's basically as soon as he said this, okay, put it on social media, like do it now, so that they can see it themselves later. And he's got.
And I think they've taken over like a text, like a texting conversation that Yosef is already having with a friend.
Yeah. Well,
to like send him the videos, like here, send it directly to him.
Yeah. I actually wasn't sure if that was something they've taken over or if he thinks he's just texting with Simon, or Simon's alias. Just because of the way that he was like, oh, I've got something I want to tell you. Because that was where it got really incriminating, is when he's like sneak texting during the Sabbath and he's, there's something I really want to tell you.
Was that just with Simon?
I think so, because I think the whole idea is that he's sort of learned to, in a very short space of time, he's found someone that he thinks he can trust, that he wants to, like, he wants to brag, essentially, and be like, hey.
I think one of the more things like, oh, these guys really did do it, scenes in that, or lines in that scene, was when they were like quoting text and they said or something about like if somebody does this to our people, then it's okay for retribution in a certain type of way. And then another kid just says, or burned. And you're like, ooh.
And there's a lot of moments as well.
That. Like the burning is justified.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments as well. Is like Yosef's wife says, whoever did this isn't a real Jew, and there's like a little cut to Yosef reacting to that line. So clearly the wife doesn't know, but it's just little moments like that. It's like, yeah, he seems like he's the one. Like he's not guilty about it. He's quite proud of what he did.
Right. She's just oblivious to his. I don't know. Sins.
They come up with this idea that whoever he calls when they're trying to cover this up, that if he calls two people, then they can take them in as well. And he calls Avishai, one other dude, and one of the other nephews, and they are told to burn the clothes they were wearing that night, and it's under the guise of the because the word he uses, again, this is like code for the phone call, just in case they're being listened to. I can't remember the word he uses, but it's like it's not suitable for Jews to wear because of the wool and whatever.
Right. It's made with animals or instead of cotton or something.
Yeah, but the impression I got though is that while he's saying that, that's just code for no, burn those clothes, because
right. Plus, burn is pretty extreme. I think you can just throw them away or donate them. The fact he wants them to be burned is another key.
Yeah, and while the first nephew does answer and presumably does this straight away because he's been told to, Avishai does not answer. Avishai, at this point, has made his way back to the school. His guilt over what he's done seems to be driving him back to the safety of what he was doing before, to be more devout, to sort of like really, throw himself headfirst into that life and kind of forget his transgressions. But of course, he is arrested at the end of the episode, as is Yosef and everyone else. Because there's a moment where Yosef's wife is like panicking, and the lady cop like sort of grabs her and like he takes off her mask and is like, no, like we're not going to hurt you, but we're here for him. So and the final shot is actually really nice because it's Simon back in the command center looking at the screen, and it's just and I knew it was going to do it because they're arresting Avishai, but the wait to cut when Avishai just happens to look right at the camera, so he's essentially looking right at Simon. And that's where it cuts. So what I'm looking forward to is I assume there's going to be a point next episode where Simon goes in to interrogates them and they realise who he's been. And I think that might make for some fun reactions.
Right. Plus, I think Avishai is probably the one who feels the safest because he's taken the vow of silence. And he even sort of took it when Simon was around him. So he hasn't really said very much. But yeah, not the other guys.
Yeah, he's also the most guilty though, just the way he's acting. In terms of he feels guilty.
Right, and actually Simon thought that suspicion was more about him just having the fear of whether or not to go through with going back to the school and the depression that he's going through. It seemed, according to Simon, it seemed unrelated.
Yeah. So it's actually the first time I think we've seen Simon just be outright wrong about something. But I do like the idea that it was Avishai that he was wrong about, because we had him as a main character in episode 1, we didn't jump to, he's one of the culprits who did this. It wasn't until they kind of hinted at it a couple of episodes later.
Right, and then even I had doubts too afterward, which is what we were discussing earlier about the red herrings.
We were thinking maybe red herrings. So yeah, even we were, after having the hints, we're like, maybe not, maybe it's just his life right now. That's all it is. But no, the episode was solid. Episode 2 still reigns king.
Pretty tense, I thought.
Yeah. I think episode 2 is still the king, and I mean,
we really like Hussein and his. We need to learn the name of the actors because he's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, nothing has to top it. The show will still be a success if it's just this good till the end. But I'm
so engaged.
But if it happens to top episode 2 at any point, then we'll be over the moon for that episode.
Yeah,
over the moon.
I agree. I really liked all the emotion that was in this one too from the mother, because we haven't really had her too much. She's been so catatonic since the events that happened, and this was a really personal episode for her, even though she was in just a short amount of scenes. Like the different type of grieving she's going through versus Hussein, who's been so involved with the police, and now he's on camera all the time and trying to bring her into the spotlight, and she's over all this now because her son's already dead. It's like, what more can happen that's good from this? It's not like before where people were like trying to find her son. Now he's been found, and I just need to move on. And it's I really like those moments a lot with her.
Yeah, it's not a happy show. It does kind of feel like everything. Like, there's very few characters in this that could have something of a happy ending. Like, we're going to get to a point where, like, I can't see this feeling anything other than
Simon.
Maybe Simon, but I can't imagine this show ending in any way that doesn't feel like just a tragedy from start to finish. Like that's what this story is. It's a tragedy. It's a warning sign. It's
right?
all these things.
And now, I mean, we spent so much time with that mob in the first 2 or 3 episodes, and now the mob is going to have names attached to the culprits who burned Muhammad. So I suspect that's going to cause a lot of dangerous, situations for even the 3 guys who are arrested.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something.
I don't know how safe they are, know.
Yeah, I wonder how quickly that gets out. Like, I wonder if they're able to keep it under wraps for a while, so it's maybe not next episode that the public find out. Is it leaked? Is that a plot point we get to? I don't know, but Curious to see how that plays out.
Right. And we've seen like the media already go off the rails in the show.
Yeah.
So what they're going to do now that they have names too.
Yeah, the media is such a double-edged sword, you know that? Like, for every good bit of honest journalism that we need as the public, there's fear-mongering and, propaganda. Yeah. I don't know, like, it's a frustrating world.
Yeah.
It's a frustrating
remember
world.
this girl from this childhood television series? You'll never guess what she looks like now. All those stuff.
I was thinking more serious political things, but sure, yeah, those are annoying too. Well, do you know the phrase I associate with clickbait? It's like they'll ask a question or whatever. They'll ask a question, and they'll be like, "You won't believe the answer."
Right.
They'll end it with that, and I'm like, "Oh God!" If I see that, I'm just like, "Oh, I just wanted like, I can't physically burn your website, but I want to. Just know that I want to. I want to print out every web page just so I could throw it in a fireplace." Worth the paper.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say that. The Amazon's burning. We're in need of trees.
Amazon. I haven't followed up on that to see how it's doing. Like if the fires were contained or not.
Too depressing.
But I think it's just old news now. The news moves so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just one tragedy after another, but let's not bog ourselves down.
I know.
Let's not bog ourselves down. So that has been episode 5 of Our Boys. I'd love to say that, obviously a lot of what we talk about in our TV and movie reviews and things like that, a lot of it is about escapism. That's not really quite the case in this one because it is a true story about a very real thing.
No, but I definitely want to learn. Like I'm really into this a lot.
Well,
we've had a couple of great shows from HBO this year, and I think this is another one that's going to be added to the list. So far, we're halfway done.
Yeah, we're exactly halfway through. 10 episodes. This is 5 down. It's funny. I think, as much as I say a lot of what we do is escapism, I think one of the things that I love about cinema and love about storytelling is the things I learn from them, even though the plot is effectively nonsense. One of the things I love about science fiction, for example, we do a sci-fi movie podcast called The Ace. You can check it out. It's out every week. Little plug. But one of the things I love about science fiction, just any type of storytelling, is just like I like. It's funny. It's actually going to sound like a really weird thing to say. It's going to sound like a really cheesy, nerdy thing to say. But in a weird way, like I feel like what some people get from religion, I got from movies growing up. Where I feel like a lot of like from the stuff, there's obviously some stuff you just get from your parents naturally, learning right from wrong. But I feel like those moral things that I learned probably more from movies than I did from any real people.
Well, movies teach you empathy.
They do.
They literally put you in someone else's shoes.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. I love that you feel empathy for people that you can never, you've never met someone like that before. You've maybe never been in that sort of situation. It makes you reconsider maybe sides of arguments you never would have because you see maybe how it works or you see the emotional effect on someone. And part of doing a story like this, which is based on a true story, is that it can hopefully make both sides of the conflict empathize with each other, and then for the rest of the world, empathize with what's going on, and hopefully we all feel a little bit closer as people at the end of it, and are willing to try and not escalate things and be understanding.
Well said.
Yes. I didn't mean to go down a deep statement at the end of this review, but sometimes that's just where life takes us. So that has been episode 5 of Our Boys. We'll be back next week with episode 6. You can let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe. You can rate the audio feed, the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcast from. You can give us 5 stars. Helps more people find out our reviews and things. It's a really weird list because obviously the almost cancelled audio feed. Obviously, it's usually rotating through a few shows at any given time. Right now, it's a really weird mix of Our Boys, The Righteous Gemstones, and the occasional Too Old to Die Young. It's a really weird mix of things. It's like the least mainstream the feed has ever been. And then we've also got an almost cancelled Netflix reviews feed that you may want to check out. Obviously, all the TV reviews are on YouTube, all sorted out in nice playlists and everything else, so go and check out that. You can support everything we do, though, financially. Tara, how can they do that?
You can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MilefuzzTV, and even donating as low as $1 per month will get you a bunch of bonus features, including bonus episodes of The Ace. Some shows you get a week early. It really helps us out. You can check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. I love how you phrased that as bonus features. You made me think that there's like a making of, like a making
Behind the scenes.
behind the scenes of the Ace episode 1. It's just footage of us sitting like talking about what we had for dinner like before we started.
Yeah. That's your $1.
Oh dear. But yeah, go check out Patreon and check out other content we have. Obviously, all the TV reviews, movie podcasts, and things. All worth having a look. And we mentioned Chernobyl. Go check out our Chernobyl reviews. Episodes 1 and 2 are me and Connor was kind of a downer about it. He didn't like it that much because he's weird. And then Tara joined for episodes 3, 4, and 5, and those are much better and more positive and happy. So
much more deserving of the Chernobyl series.
Much more deserving. And I tried to be as positive as I could in the first couple, but Cara was being a miserable sod. So even I'm more positive than 3, 4, and 5 because Tara just lifted the spirits of the whole thing. So go check out our cheery reviews of Chernobyl. That was supposed to sound silly because it's about Chernobyl, but
it's pretty dire.
It's a pretty dire experience, yes, but very tense. So go check out those. But that's us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?